Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As we speak now, outside there are 100 cars lining up to receive the special July 4th Shabbat package from the Palm Beach Synagogue. And in this bag, there is a Havdalah candle that we will use tomorrow night, red, white, and blue, to mark Shabbat ending and to welcome July 4th and celebrate the independence of the United States. In addition to that, there is the copy of the Constitution in each bag, including the Declaration of Independence. And indeed, it was in the year 1776, on July 8th, that the bell was rung to summon everyone for the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence, after it was signed on July 4th of 1776. And it's fascinating that today, this bell, the Liberty Bell, stands in Philadelphia, and on it is inscribed a verse from Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 10, that says, proclaim freedom throughout the land for all its inhabitants. And how is it that this symbol of liberty and freedom in the United States is the cracked bell? The most famous aspect of the Liberty Bell is the crack in it. How could it be that a bell with a crack represents liberty and freedom? You know, in the year 1911, at the Louvre in Paris, there was a heist, there was a theft, and the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre in Paris. But something fascinating happened. Over the 2 years until they retrieved the Mona Lisa and returned it back to the Louvre, more people came to see the empty space where the Mona Lisa once stood than all the people combined that came to see the actual Mona Lisa in the previous 12 years. And indeed, that's human nature. Sometimes it's precisely when something is absent, when something is missing, that we desire and seek it out even more than ever before. There are Mona Lisas all around us, but we fail to see them and to appreciate them and to be grateful for them. And it's precisely when it's taken from us that we realize what we are lacking and we seek it out even more. This July 4th, perhaps more than any other July 4th, America has great cracks in it. And may this July 4th be a day to realize that yes, there's a crack in everything, as Leonard Cohen says in his song, but it is precisely through the crack that the light gets in. In this week's Torah portion, Bilam attempts to curse the Jews, and nothing but blessings comes out of his mouth as God puts blessings into his mouth. And one of the blessings that Bilam says is Lo hibit aven b'Yakov v'lo ra'a amel b'Yisrael, which means God does not see any iniquity in Jacob or any fault in Israel. Hashem Elokav imo, Hashem their God is with them. Usruach melech bo, and the love of the king, the friendship of the king is upon them. And this, says the Rishon Rabbi, is a lesson for every one of us in our personal lives. Sometimes when we look in the mirror and we look at ourselves, we notice our faults, we notice our cracks, we notice our iniquities. Says the Kotzker Rebbe, what Bilam is teaching us is don't view yourself by your faults and your cracks, but rather remember Hashem Elokav imo, God is with you. No matter what mistakes you've made, no matter what faults you have, God always loves you. The friendship of the King is upon you, and therefore you have the ability to heal from whatever cracks you have. You know, tomorrow is July 4th, but on the Hebrew calendar, it's the 12th day of Tammuz. The 12th day of Tammuz is the day that was the birthday of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson. And in the year 1927, he was arrested by Joseph Stalin and the communist KGB for spreading Judaism in the former Soviet Union where it was illegal. And he was sentenced to death. And it was through the intervention of this great country, United States of America, that he was not only released from his death sentence, but he was freed and allowed to come to the United States in 1940 and reestablish the Chabad movement from Lubavitch, Russia in 770 Brooklyn, New York. And here we are 93 years later after that release and liberation. And we look back at history and we say, who won? Joseph Stalin, cursed be his name, who murdered 50 million of his people, or Rabbi Joseph Schneerson? And at the time, if you would have looked at those two people, you say, well, Joseph Stalin is the most powerful person and a ruthless dictator. And the Rebbe was just a Hasidic Rebbe with a little underground movement. But yet, who won? Today we see that the Rebbe survived Joseph Stalin, came to America, transplanted his movement, and spread it all over the world through his son-in-law, his successor, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. On the other hand, the ideology of communism of Joseph Stalin is dead, and throughout the former Soviet Union, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of yeshivot, of synagogues, of schools, of mikvaot. How did Rabbi Schneerson do it? And the answer could be explained in one story. That when he was interrogated by the KGB, and the KGB officers said, tell us where all your underground secret yeshivot and synagogues are, your rabbis teaching Torah. And he wouldn't disclose any information. At that point, one of the KGB officers pulled out his pistol and pressed it against the temple of the rabbi and mockingly said to the rabbi, you know, this little toy has gotten many people to speak. And Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson looked up at the KGB officer with no fear in his eyes, without flinching, without blinking. And he said, that toy of yours could only scare someone who has many gods in one world. But I have one God and I have two worlds, and that toy doesn't scare me. And indeed today we see that he won and he prevailed. And that is the message of Bilam. Whatever cracks there may be, whatever ruptures there may be, fault lines, whatever faults and iniquities there may be within a person or within a community or within a society, remember that the love of God is greater and the friendship of the King is upon us. And therefore, our country this year on July 4th is focusing on the fact that we've never felt such a crack in our society. Many cracks, multiple cracks. Wherever we look, we see cracks. But we can't focus on the cracks. We have to remember that the love of God and the friendship of the King is upon us. This country is a blessed country. This country granted freedom to millions and millions of people, many of our ancestors, and therefore God's love and blessing is upon this country. And rather than focus on the cracks, we have to focus on healing the cracks, because freedom sometimes, like the Liberty Bell says, proclaim freedom throughout the land, comes precisely through the cracks. Because as Leonard Cohen says in his famous song, there's a crack in everything, but that's how the light gets in. Or as the Kotzker Rebbe once said, there's nothing straighter than a crooked ladder and nothing more complete than a broken heart. When we have humility and we realize what we're lacking and we strive to connect with God and bring down the blessings and the friendship of God upon us and upon our country, then God responds to our prayers and we're able to heal the broken, fractured ruptures in our society and bring freedom, true freedom, to each and every one of us and every citizen of this great land and this great country. I'll just conclude with a story about a king who had a most precious diamond, and a crack developed in this beautiful diamond, and the king was devastated. He called the greatest jewelers to try to repair the diamond, but to no avail. Finally, one jeweler said, give it to me, I have a solution how to repair it. He took the diamond and brought it back to him a few days later. The king looked at it and he saw that the jeweler took the crack and turned it into a beautiful stem of a rose and engraved petals around the stem, turning it into a beautiful flower, making it more beautiful than ever before. That is our challenge today in 2020, to take the cracks in our society and turn them into beautiful roses, into beautiful flowers, to bring freedom through the broken Liberty Bell. Tomorrow in Philadelphia, they will symbolically ring the Liberty Bell. Let the bell ring in all of our hearts and minds to awaken us to what this country was founded upon: freedom, liberty, the dignity of every human being, the equality of every human being, and the unity, the United States of America, to come together with brotherly love and with friendship. Shabbat Shalom, a blessed, happy Shabbat, and a meaningful July 4th and 12th day of Tammuz. May the message of freedom, the message of the Rabbi Yosef Schneerson, which is that faith in God will prevail over all, transmit and inspire all of us to elevate ourselves and raise our country up and ourselves and our families, to not focus on the faults, but to focus on the love of God and the friendship of the King. Shabbat Shalom.